Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to DSP versus the Internet, the conclusion for episode 23 for July 23rd, 2023. Thanks to everyone who was a great audience. Thanks to everyone who submitted clips for this week's show. I've really had a great time with it. And let's get right to it. The final clips for this week. Here we go. This is supposed to be, I have a bad case of diarrhea. Japanese learning English. Here we go.
Ambulance, please.
Okay, hold on. Where does it hurt?
My stomach. ちゃんと痛いけど痛い。
What the hell?
救急車を呼んでもらったからといって安心はできません。しっかりと自分の状態を相手に伝えましょう。
What the fuck does Pilo the skillful
I
abbot
have a
mean?
bad case of diarrhea.
私はひどい下痢です。
Nice.
I have a bad case of diarrhea. I have a bad case of diarrhea.
If you have a bad case of diarrhea, why do you want someone to call the ambulance? What? What the fuck is this?
I have a bad case of diarrhea. 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 肩に手を乗せ I have クロスして A bad case お腹をさすって of diarrhea ジェスチャーゲームのようです
This can't be fucking real. There's no way this is real. I don't believe for a second that this is real. The only problem now is that's going to be stuck in my head for like all day. I'm just going to keep hearing, I have a bad case of diarrhea, right? By the way, Quantum Leap. I used to watch the show all the time. I saw the entire series.
I'm retarded?
What was so funny? I don't get the point of that clip was. In that show, for those who don't know, because you probably have no idea what the show is, there was a science experiment gone wrong where what happens is this guy now jumps from person to person in time. So one day he'll be, a factory worker in 1972 making hubcaps. Then the next day he's someone part of the civil rights movement in the United States. Then the next day he's in World War II fighting the Nazis. And then the next day he's someone like that who's, retarded. And then the next day, it's someone else. And that's what was crazy about the show, was that every show had a completely different premise for what was going on. The plot always reset every show. But I don't understand why they selected that. If there's no context to the video, it's funny. It is. It's funny? Oh, okay. I guess you think that's funny. Anyway, the life and death of Mad Catz. This will be fascinating, and here's why. Mad Catz was a company that at one point made a lot of third-party peripherals for consoles and made a ton of money doing it, but they were always junky. Then all of a sudden, during the era of Street Fighter 4, they started making tons of joysticks, and their joysticks were actually quite good, and they sold like hotcakes, and the company exploded. They also were making peripherals for Bomani games like Rock Band Guitar Hero. I forget which one it was, but they made them for that one. But then they just went out of business. So I guess the question would be, why did they go out of business? Which actually I'd like to know. If I skip all this and we get to the end, can we find out why they went out of business? Here's the joysticks. Yup, there's the joysticks for Street Fighter. And then here's the harmonic stuff. Alright, so now let's fast forward. Why'd they go out of business?
Quickly faded from the limelight even after hefty price drops. Making matters worse, it was not going so well behind the scenes at Mad Catz. They'd been in and out of debt since 2011, and by June...
Okay, let's fast forward. Or let's rewind, I mean. Oops, here we go.
Catz to release a bunch of officially licensed instruments for Rock Band in late 2008. These were arguably an improvement over the originals,
right.
With a microphone that included its own controller buttons, a portable drum kit that was much more compact and easy to move around than the full thing, and a bass guitar that looked a lot like an actual Fender Precision.
So they were doing really well.
In 2010, Mad Catz then acquired gaming audio company Triton, giving them an instant foothold into the growing realm of microphones and headsets.
Oh, I had a Triton headset. That was one of the headsets I had, and now I think was before they were owned by Mad Catz, if I remember correctly. But Triton was like, I love the quality, but the design was shitty. Like the headbands were made of hard plastic that would always crack no matter what. I don't know what they were thinking.
Board personal computers as well with the release of the Cyborg Rat gaming mouse in 2010, the Eclipse touch-sensitive keyboard and gesture-controlled mouse, and acquired the VMAX Simulation Corporation, a flight sim developer to help guide the development of future Saytech products.
Huh.
Then in 2013, they decided to cash in on the micro-console boom inspired by the Ouya, which was
Really?
at the time the second highest funded project on crowdfunding
Keep in mind the Ouya was an insane failure, right? So they were trying to make a micro console. Is that what ruined them, making a micro console?
site Kickstarter. Mad Catz' response was the Mojo, an Android-based console that cost $250. It saw some success among Android modding enthusiasts, but projects like this and the Ouya quickly faded from the limelight even after hefty price drops. Making matters worse, it was not going so well behind the scenes at Mad Catz. They'd been in and out of debt since 2011, and by June of 2015, they'd announced to investors that they'd failed to meet their credit lender's monthly target on a $20 million loan. The bank decided to waive the violation, though, since Mad Catz had what they thought was an ace up their sleeve, Rock Band 4. Set to release in October, Mad Catz was betting the farm on the game performing well, not only manufacturing the instruments for the game, but going so far as to take care of the marketing and distribution worldwide as well.
Yeah, I remember. Remember I got it for free? And it was weird. This is when I was partnered with Machinima. All of a sudden, I just got it. Literally, Machinima had not asked me if I wanted it. It got mailed to my house. And I opened it up. I was like, why do I have this? I had no idea why I had Rock Band 4. And I guess what it is Mad Catz was so into heavy promotion, right, that they wanted to basically send it out to everyone possible, right? So there you go. Guys, if you keep talking nonsense in my chat, I'm going to ban every one of you who's saying nonsense, right? So here's the one right here. You're gone. Who's next? Right? Are you guys ready to all get banned? Because I'm done. You guys are ridiculously stupid. Seriously. You're completely derailing my show. No one even wants to talk in the chat now because of you idiots. Can you shut up now? Thanks. You're being really stupid. Okay. So yeah, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I just get this. And if you remember, I did do an event around it. And then the whole event got muted and blocked. This is when I realized I couldn't do musical content on YouTube. But yeah, like, it was so weird because I just got it out of nowhere. You could tell they must have been so desperate to promote the event, right?
But it was not nearly enough to keep up with Mad Catz' mad credit problems. Even with a 55% uptick in sales from the previous year, they reported an $11.6 million loss. This was largely due to the lower than forecast Rock Band 4 sales, along with $8.3 million of unsold instrument inventory languishing in warehouses.
So basically, at first, they were a junk peripheral company that made a lot of money on junky peripherals. Then, when Street Fighter 4 came out, they started making really good joysticks and made an insane amount of money. At the same time, they started making Rock Band peripherals and made a lot of money there. But then they made a ton of bad investments. They were making this micro console. They were buying other companies. Like, why'd they buy this weird flight sim company and stuff? So basically they were pissing their money away for no reason, and they got themselves racked up in debt, and they really needed a big money maker. They were banking on Rock Band 4, but the thing is, by the time Rock Band 4 came out, that fad was over. People didn't really care about the virtual instruments or, you know, making fake music. They didn't care about that. It was popular in like 2007, 2008. You know, 2015 was so many years later that it didn't sell as well as they wanted, and that was the end of the company, it sounds like.
The writing was on the wall after Harmonix dropped Mad Catz as distributor and partnered with Performance Digital Products instead. Even with Mad Catz laying off 37% of their staff, their CEO and chairman resigning, and selling off the Saytech brand to Logitech, their stock prices plummeted down to an abysmal 4 cents a share.
Oh, man.
The New York Stock Exchange delisted them entirely on March 23, 2017, and that was that.
Yikes.
1 week later, Mad Catz' board of directors voted to declare Chapter 7 bankruptcy, meaning that everything they owned would be liquidated to pay off their debts. And just like that, a company with an almost 30-year history vanished overnight. Mad Catz was gone. Will they be missed? Probably not by very many. While they did make a few excellent products over the years, there's no shortage of other manufacturers that continue to provide the same types of things at a similar price point. Mad Catz is more of a cautionary tale than anything else, showing just what can happen to even the largest name in their category when people lose sight of what made the company succeed in the first place and fail to recognize the interests of a rapidly changing market.
That is exactly what happened. It sounds like they threw money at completely the wrong things and then banked on things that weren't popular anymore to bring them back from their mistakes, which didn't work. So that's sad. That was a good video. LGR, isn't this the same guy who makes the food? So this guy makes food videos and he does like documentary style gaming videos. This guy's good. I like that. I mean, this is 6 years old. This is an old video. But this is good stuff. This guy's a good YouTuber. That's quality stuff right there. Nice. Happy to see someone like that. They diversify and they're successful, right? That's nice.
Think about your favorite video game. If you lost your sight tomorrow, would you still be able to play it?
No.
What about your hand?
Or the dexterity in your hands? Anyone can be a gamer, at least in theory, but historically very few games were designed to be played by everyone. These days, developers are using some cool tricks to bridge the divide. And we're not just talking about closed captioning, but also settings that change the actual gameplay. But
The accessibility
to
of,
appreciate these, it helps to understand
Last of
what
Us
gaming
2,
was like
groundbreaking.
in the olden times. Due to the limitations of early gaming technology, designs were simple and rather inflexible.
Yeah.
Games like Pac-Man and Space Invaders had high contrast visuals, straightforward gameplay, no dialogue, and a minimal number of possible inputs, which meant they happened
Oh,
to
is this
be
Linus Tech Tips?
somewhat
No, this is Tech
accessible.
Quickie.
Games like these were fine for people with moderate low vision, developmental delays, or learning disabilities, even if that wasn't at the front of the developers' minds. There's not a lot of tactical complexity to a game like Pong. You move the paddle up, then down, then up again, if you're feeling cheeky. Compared to a modern controller, the big buttons of an arcade cabinet don't demand a ton of precision, and you can see some common design themes between old arcade controls and specialized peripherals like the Xbox Adaptive Controller and its assorted plug-in accessories. But some of those old games were also highly visual, fast-paced, and they had no real easy mode. A problem for people who are nearly or completely blind, and for people with more profound fine motor challenges. Even something as common as arthritis can seriously impact a player's ability to engage with genres like first-person shooters and rhythm games. As gaming matured, we started to see gamers getting more options for how they'd interact with their games. Things like adjustable difficulty settings, simultaneous text and audio dialogue, and lightweight ergonomic controllers. But these weren't true accessibility options as much as they were basic quality of life measures that improved the gaming experience for a much larger population than just disabled gamers. For example, assistive settings like tutorials and story-only modes were designed to help new and inexperienced players, but they also help gamers with physical and cognitive disabilities.
Right.
While these helpful options have been with us for a long time, they've often been implemented haphazardly or as an afterthought, because it was left up to individual developers to decide whether or how to include them.
Yep.
Unsurprisingly, those developers rarely got it right the first time. A good example is the original Assassin's Creed, which has a score of 3.3 out of 10 on caniplaythat.com.
Ouch.
Because it has no option for
Ah,
subtitles,
it's lame.
despite being released in 2007. Subtitles had been invented. Only 2 years later, the second Assassin's Creed had both subtitles and fully voiced lines in 5 different languages.
Nice.
Now, many games later into the same franchise, the accessibility options for Assassin's Creed are extensive, albeit imperfect. And players can separately control the difficulty level for different aspects of the game like combat, exploration, and stealth, taking into account cognitive, motor, vision, and hearing challenges. And Ubisoft has been far from the cutting edge when it comes to accessibility. Compare Naughty Dog, for example, who released The Last of Us
Naughty
in
Dog's
2013
top of the line, man.
with visual cues for important sounds, highlights for small, hard-to-notice pickups, and the option to change handwritten notes to more readable plain text. 2020's The Last of Us Part 2 was especially ambitious, including text-to-speech, fully remappable controls, a high-contrast mode, labeled subtitles
Most
indicating
accessible
who
game
is saying
ever.
what, a glossary of game-important audio cues, screen magnification, auto-aim, and navigation assistance. In fact, Naughty Dog promised that blind players could play through the entire game without sighted assistance, which many
And they did.
Naughty Dog, more like well-behaved dog, if you don't count the crunch. But Naughty Dog and Ubisoft are large, established game developers. How are small, independent studios supposed to provide the same level of accessibility? And how are studios small and large implementing features specifically designed for disabled players? We'll tell you more right after we thank Sidekick for sponsoring.
No, Sidekick, how dare you sponsor them? It's unacceptable. Don't sponsor them. I'm just kidding. No, so people are saying that this channel is associated with Linus Tech Tips. It's a spin-off channel, which is why I keep showing Linus Tech Tips videos, which makes sense, I guess.
Disabled gamers themselves. A lot of experimentation in both software and hardware came from independent programmers and hardware developers looking to serve a niche community, often because they or someone they knew wanted to play video games but couldn't. It's hard for an able-bodied developer to imagine in a vacuum all the barriers disabled gamers might run into, never mind how to address those barriers. That's also why the PC, with its plethora of specialized peripherals and open standard connectors like USB, has been the machine of choice for many disabled gamers. The Adroit Switchblade controller, which allowed gamers with limited mobility to play on the Xbox 360, was originally developed by Able Gamers, a non-profit organization dedicated to accessible video games. Able Gamers was founded by Mark Bartlett, whose best friend was slowly losing her ability to play EverQuest due to multiple sclerosis.
Aww.
It was only after the launch of the Adroit Switchblade that Microsoft took notice and tapped Able Gamers to help make the Xbox Adaptive Controller. But the good news is that the push for solutions has already led to some useful features like screen magnification for low vision, altered color schemes for different kinds of color blindness, and haptic feedback as a replacement for audible signals.
That's cool.
Any new feature a developer implements is going to take time and effort, but open, well-documented developer resources can shave down that workload and make it more realistic for small teams to implement some of these solutions. Some of the past reluctance to fully implement certain kinds of accessibility options like adjustable difficulty settings, aim assist, automatic navigation, and glowing visual guides comes from concerns about cheating, as well as a certain stigma common to the mainstream AAA sector. A get good gatekeeping mentality that wants to preserve the perceived exclusivity of especially challenging games.
Yeah, there you go.
Dark Souls. From Software. Some games don't even allow the player to finish the game on easy mode.
Yep.
For an extreme example of this, Twisted Metal 2 from 1996 has an easy mode that ends after the first boss, telling players, no losers allowed beyond this point.
Wow.
You must switch to medium or hard to continue. Because how dare you try to have fun? Another concern is that, well, certain changes to a game might turn it into a wholly different experience. The accessible version of The Last of Us Part 2 is still a poignant and brutal narrative experience thanks to the thoughtful work of its developers. However, if you took a game like Getting Over
By the way, no, it's not. The story's terrible.
it, an experience that is fundamentally about accepting the frustration that comes with having to start over from zero, and you made it impossible to fail, well, then you haven't made a game accessible, you've made a completely different game. Instead, Getting Over It has options for using a mouse, a joystick, or a touchscreen, allowing flexibility, but still retaining the spirit of the experience. A big part of what makes games fun is the catharsis of overcoming a significant challenge, especially a challenge that is difficult or impossible for less dedicated players. But being unable to participate in a game because you are physically unable to play is a fundamentally different challenge than the one that was intended.
I agree.
And there are a lot of accessibility options that do not necessarily eliminate challenge for their intended
You know
users.
what? I actually like exactly what he just said. I know I'm being kind of quiet and just absorbing what he's saying. I like what he just said. He just said, when you're playing a video game that's difficult, you're supposed to be expected to have a base level of challenge, right? And so the argument to make it not, don't make it accessible because it makes it too easy. What you have to understand is the people who need the accessibility features are not on the same base level as you. They're not going to get that experience. They already have a disability that makes the game already way harder to play. Now you're also giving them that hard game. Do you understand? So if I pick up this controller and I play Dark Souls, it's tough. But if someone picks up this controller who only has one hand and is trying to play Dark Souls, it's even tougher. So why say that accessibility makes the game too easy? You're a fucking idiot. You shouldn't be saying that. Understand, all you're trying to do is level the playing field for the person who already is going to have an incredibly increased difficulty trying to play that hard game. We're not trying to make the games piss easy so anyone can coast through it going like this. I beat Dark Souls pressing A. Duh, 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 duh. No, that's not the point. The point is that everyone should have an equal challenge level, whether they're disabled or not. And you can't do that if you're disabled. You're already starting at negative 100. How are you supposed to play it the same way as everybody else? And that's not fair. That was a really great way to explain it. That's what you should say to every get good moron out there who says dumb shit like that. Really. Every get good person, fuck off. Because your whole line of reasoning is so stupid because it's not the same playing field. It's not. It's not fair at all for people to act like that because it's not equal. There should be accessibility in all games. I do believe there should be accessibility in FromSoft games. I do believe that. I don't think every person should be using it, only if you need it. But absolutely, I think there should be. I don't think it's fair that there's certain games that are not accessible because it's the get good game, and we refuse to put accessibility in our games because then it's too easy. That's ludicrous and stupidity, basically.
For example, the quad stick is a controller specifically designed to allow tetraplegic players to game using their mouth.
Wow.
And honestly, if you can't get a kill streak in COD with just your lips, are you even a real gamer? The fact that gaming is a more participatory experience than watching a movie or listening to music complicates the goal of a universally accessible experience.
Right.
But it also means that games can provide experiences that might otherwise be out of reach for people with disabilities. For example, it's often much harder for wheelchair users to leave the house, which can be extremely socially isolating. Online video games can be a great option for shared social experiences, despite those physical barriers. There are still financial barriers, however, as adaptive controllers can be prohibitively expensive. And it's not all about adapting existing games to suit disabled gamers. Audio games are entirely blind accessible by default.
I was just going to say that. Like, I know for a fact that Super Blind Man plays a lot of audio games and loves them. I don't even know what they are. Like, I never even played an audio-only game. I wouldn't even know what that means. But apparently it's popular in that community, and he loves them. So that's awesome that they exist.
Audio and haptic feedback to communicate with the player. A recent popular example is The Veil, a story about a blind adventurer where the player has to navigate and even fight and dodge enemies using only auditory cues.
Wow.
These kinds of games often use binaural audio recording, which uses two microphones specifically positioned to give a sense of 3D space. So the player can tell whether a sound comes from the left or right, front or back. If you're wondering what the game looks like, well, we would show you some gameplay footage, but, well, in the end, we're probably never going to live in a world with perfectly accessible games. But there's a lot of low-hanging fruit and great new ideas when it comes to making gaming a hobby for everyone. And my thanks to everyone.
That was great. That was a really good video. I like that a lot. I'm just curious, like, what's the next video? Because I don't think we have time for another long one, but if it's short. Why you should play Persona 1 and 2? We don't really have time for that. Is there a short video we can watch that's just like a clip?
It's a great thing.
Oh, here we go. We'll watch this. This will be the last video
George
for today.
Washington, Thomas Jefferson, William Howard Taft, and President Barack Obama. One young girl traced them all back to one common ancestor.
They're all cousins and all grandsons of John Lackland.
It's the first family tree of its kind.
Really?
Pouring through more than 500,000 names for months, 12-year-old Bridge Ann D'Avignon discovered that all the U.S. presidents, except Martin Van Buren, are related to the former King of England, John Lackland Plantagenet,
Really?
signer of the Magna Carta in 1215.
Mildred Reed is his first great-grandmother on George Washington. And on Obama, Mildred Reed is the 10th great-grandmother.
It started as an assignment to research her own lineage, tracing it back to roots in France. But Bridge Ann wanted to branch out.
Well, I think we just all go back somewhere. It's just a matter of proving it.
She started with George Washington, but unlike other professional genealogists that only looked at the male family lines, Bridge Ann was able to link the presidents together using both male and female ancestry. Before this, historians had only been able to link 22 family trees.
She kind of created a triumph of women's studies here.
Bridge Ann also figured out she's an 18th cousin of President Obama, something she hopes to be able to share with him in person.
I've written a letter
Never.
to Obama,
He threw out the
but
letter.
I just
He burned
haven't
it.
standards apply. I hope to meet
He said,
the
"Fuck this.
president
This is
and,
not
like,
interesting."
explain it to him.
In Paso Robles, Adam Rakusin, your Central Coast News.
That was fascinating. So obviously what we know is that it's just a big conspiracy, that all U.S. presidents actually are the same family, and that they've been controlling the United States through a secret society called the Illuminati for many, many, hundreds and hundreds of years. And that's why our country never gets any better, because they're secretly controlling everything. Our laws, our populace, our money, and they are a ruling class that keeps us under their thumb at all times. I mean, it doesn't matter if you get Obama, Donald Trump, or Biden in the White House, they're all the same, because they're all related. All right. So, guys, thanks for watching DSP versus the Internet. This is a great show. A good variety of stuff was covered. I hope that you enjoyed. Remember, the absolute best way to be a part of this show is to become a member. It is the channel members who nominate all these videos. I want to say thank you to all the members who nominated this big variety of videos this week. I said good variety again, right? Pretty good. I mean, some pretty silly stuff in there too, but overall, some educational stuff, some fun stuff, some interesting stuff, some stuff I learned today, which is always nice. And I hope that you enjoyed. Remember, when you're a channel member, also, you can access this entire stream immediately when it goes offline. But if you're not, it will be uploaded in 6 separate parts over the course of the week to the channel. And I had a great time. I certainly hope that you guys did too. All right, so this is Phil signing off for DSP versus the Internet, episode 23. See you next week, same time, same place for more fun.